Hi guys, it's Femi here. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about a video I stumbled across on YouTube about two whistleblowers um, who several years ago, disclosed information about UFO and the U.S. Army and and NATO working with UFO intelligence. So the first man's name is Sergeant Clifford Stone. He's a retired Army UFO consultant. And the second man is Robert Dean. He's a retired NATO intelligence analyst. And what I found interesting about the video is that, specifically for the second um, analyst, Robert Dean, after he confirmed that they worked with, they met the aliens, right? They met the alien intelligence, and there were four kinds of species of aliens that they met, and one of them was humanoid. And he goes on to say, he felt it very important that the US should disclose this information to the citizens because the citizens have every right to know. But then he goes off on a tangent and begins to talk about new age philosophy, right? So I want you guys to pay attention to the video and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Let's watch.
For 22 and a half years, I served in the United States Army. During my tenure, I was on many occasions asked to serve as the official, unofficial UFO consultant dealing with UFO matters in the areas of my assignment. As a result of my involvement, I was able to ascertain that the United States government knew a whole lot more about UFOs than it was telling the American public. That there was an intelligence involved, that there was a highly evolved technology. I learned that to a degree, we were carrying on a dialogue with this intelligence. We were making every effort we could to acquire this technology and make it part of our own existing technology. We did this, I was told, in the interest of national security. We also had an officially sanctioned deception program. This was in total disregard as to the impact this would have on the individual witnesses and also on their families. This ultimately led to my disillusionment with the program and my involvement in it. I sincerely feel that no government has the right to destroy the lives of the people which it is supposed to serve. While I was in the military and I got to the point where I was no longer interested in trying to be part of the program and actually was going against the program, and I started to be very open and talking about what was going on. This resulted in every effort being made to try to destroy my military career. I was threatened and they even tried to force my military retirement, or I could face possible court-martial. These actions failed, of course, as you know. At one point, I even had an individual come up to me, point a gun at my head, and inform me we could have a training accident, and this would end this foolishness once and for all. I firmly believe that those of us that served in a capacity of the U.S. government in some form or fashion, and who were exposed to the truth, we have a moral obligation to the UFO witnesses, the real victims of the UFO phenomena, to expose once and for all this policy and to reveal the truth, and that is, we are not alone in the universe.
Robert Dean has a list of credentials a mile long. He served 4 years from 1963 to 1967 at Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers, Europe, the military arm of NATO. He was an intelligence analyst with a cosmic top-secret clearance.
Well, Don, it began for me in 1963 when I was assigned to the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers in Europe. I arrived in the summer of '63 and I was assigned to the Operations Division. I was further assigned to what we call SHOC, the War Room, the Supreme Headquarters Operations Center. And at that time I was given a cosmic top-secret clearance, which was and still is the highest level of security access that NATO has. When I was assigned to the war room, I learned that a study had been initiated in 1961, and everybody was talking about it. They were gossiping about it. And the subject was UFOs, and that intrigued me a bit. When that study was concluded in 1964 and it was published, and I was still working in the war room at that time, I had access to this document. I had a chance to read it. And having been exposed to it, I must tell you honestly that my life has never ever quite been the same. Because I read first-hand reports, verifiable NATO military material that indicated that the UFOs were not only real, but they represented something far beyond anything I had ever imagined before. When the study was concluded in '64, they concluded that there were 4 different groups apparently coming and visiting us. Out of those 4 different groups, one group looked exactly like we do, so much so that they could sit beside you in a restaurant or in an airplane or in a theater, and you'd never know. And that particular point bothered the military guys a lot. The point being that some of these people from somewhere could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters, or they could be walking up and down the corridors of the Pentagon. One day at lunch, a lieutenant colonel made the remark, he says, "Jesus, do you realize they could even be in the White House?" And there was a little forced laughter at that point, I remember, because a lot of us over the years have had some misgivings about the occupants of the White House. But the point I'm making is that the idea that aliens could be here in our midst bothered the military, because if you're not paranoid when you go into the service, you're certainly trained very quickly to be so. It's the nature of the military mind, I think, to be paranoid. But that was only part of the story. The SHAPE conclusions in '64 was that there were 4 groups that we knew of. They were apparently interplanetary. Some very likely were interstellar. They even concluded that some of them could be intergalactic. When I retired in 1976, many of our military people knew at that point that we were not simply dealing with visitations from people from other planets or star systems. They had concluded by '76 that some of these visitors very well might be multidimensional in their source. The evidence that we had collected and the evidence that they had repeatedly demonstrated to us, and that's no accident. They became very clear after a time that there was a program or a process of some kind underway, that they had demonstrated over and over and over again that they apparently were able to manipulate matter and time. Now this really shook up our scientists. There are a lot of new young scientists in particle physics today who talk about multiple dimensions. There's a brilliant young professor in New York by the name of Michio Kaku, who has written a brilliant book called Hyperspace, where they talk about 10 separate dimensions. I'm not enough of a physicist to try to explain to you what a dimension is, but the idea that there could be intelligences from somewhere else, from other dimensions, coming and going into our reality. It's been quite a shake-up in traditional science. I guess I speak out openly and bluntly about this because I feel so strongly about it. I violate my security oath every time I speak about it. I do it intentionally and I do it on purpose, because I feel so strongly that the American people not only have a right to know the truth, but they have a need to know the truth. The truth, Don, apparently is simply this, that we're not alone, we've never been alone. We are apparently part of an infinite universe filled with intelligent life. I find that exciting. It doesn't frighten me. The SHAPE study concluded in '64 that if they, whoever they were malevolent or hostile, that they could have taken this planet and cleaned it up and eliminated us, turned us into dog food or whatever, a long, long time ago. But the historical evidence indicates that they've been with us a long time, and I've concluded that we had what I like to call an intimate interrelationship. with at least one of those groups, the group that looks exactly like we do. And that point is, I don't like the word alien. I don't think the term alien is appropriate at all here. I like to refer to them as family. We're related to them. I think they had a hand in our being here. And I think the time has come where we're about to meet our extended family. It's going to be very soon, and the people are not ready. And one of the reasons I do speak out so bluntly and so openly is if in some small way I can help people get prepared for this. Because I believe that this reality, once we have accepted it and understood it and gone beyond the fear, will bring about an expansion of consciousness in the human race that will truly help us and prepare us to go out there and take our rightful place in that infinite community of life.
Okay, so if you noticed, he called the aliens, the humanoid aliens, family. I said, no, we should welcome them when they reveal themselves. We should welcome them because they are family, blah, 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 blah. And if you already are familiar with New Age philosophy, their ideology and belief system, you will know that this man is influenced by that ideology. So he's most likely a New Ager himself. Because there's no way that you can come in contact with these aliens and not get influenced by some form of occultism, whether it's spiritualism or new age ideology. There's always a leaning towards some kind of occult ideology when people come in contact with what they think are aliens, and that is no coincidence, right? So this was years ago, before all this. Like, the date on the video says it was uploaded 2010, but I believe the interview was actually even earlier than that. So what's interesting is that there's a movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still, right? And the movie came out in 1951. But I'm just going to read briefly the first part of the plot. So it says here, when a flying saucer lands in Washington, D.C., the US Army quickly surrounds it. A humanoid emerges and announces that he comes in peace and with goodwill. Doesn't that sound exactly like what this man was saying, like how they met the aliens? When he unexpectedly opens a small device, he is shot and wounded by a naval soldier. A tall robot emerges from the saucer and quickly disintegrates the army's weapons. The alien orders the robot god to desist. He explains that the now broken device was a gift for the President of the United States that would have enabled him to study life on other planets. I remember I said in some of my other videos that when these aliens invade the world, like when they reveal themselves, when they manifest, they are going to come with technology. It's the same thing I showed you in Superman when his parents put him into the spaceship and they send him to Earth. They send him to Earth with technology. And I showed you, like, in my videos, how Satan says Bible prophecy, and I have several videos on this, but like basically I've explained to you guys how these aliens are going to be coming with technology when they invade the world, right? And they are going to play the good cop, bad cop. They are going to come and say, we are your creators and we are coming to save you from this other alien villain who took the people that disappeared from the earth, because they want the world to believe that Jesus is an evil alien that took the believers and the babies out of the world. They took the people that disappeared out of the world, so that the people on earth will hate this villain alien god called Jesus. And you now have the Antichrist who will come and say he is even the real Jesus. So all the years that they thought that the Jesus of Christianity existed, that wasn't the Jesus that these Christians were talking about. That was a fake Jesus. That was a villainous Jesus. And the Antichrist he's going to head the one world religion, right? So he's going to say, I am the Christ. I am the one you're looking for. And through all these religions, I am the one you're looking for. I am the savior, and I have been sent here by, the alien creators, because it's going to refer to these alien beings who are like I explained in the Superman video. They sent him. So Superman has parents. So the Antichrist is going to be like, these are the alien creators that sent me, but he's going to call them God, right? He's going to call them God, and they'll be humanoid, because the Antichrist is a human being. But the Antichrist is not an alien himself. He's a human being. But I explained to you guys that alien powers are demonic powers, but the world will just think, oh, it's just alien powers. They're just this extraterrestrial powers, like they're just superior beings, but they're demons, and it's all demonic powers. And the powers that the Antichrist is going to use to prove that he's the savior of the world, he's the Messiah, is demonic powers, right? From demons. And there's this website I came across called alienresistance.org, and I found something very interesting here. In this website, it's like it's Christians, is a Christian owned website and organization, and they help UFO abductees, right? Because the UFO abductees, when they hear the gospel, they help those UFO abductees to be delivered from the alien abduction and the alien encounters by the name and blood of Jesus. So it's like a deliverance ministry of sorts, and also other things that have to do with UFOs. And they debunk, like people like David Icke, who are new age, who come in pretending to be truthers, who just want people to know the truth, but they also put mixing lies with their truth. So people like David Icke are the sinful agents, right? So they debunk David Icke and the Zeitgeist and Da Vinci Code and all these so-called truth movies or truther movement people that mix in lies with truth. They start off, when you hear them, they're like, oh yeah, the government has been hiding this is UFOs are real, blah blah blah, aliens are real. But then they start adding new age philosophy so that people don't come to Christ, and they turn to the new age, which is just a Luciferian movement. So anyway, you guys can check out the website yourself. But I want to bring your attention to this part. Number 2, UFO abduction used as an explanation for the rapture. It says here, Dr. David Alan Lewis and Robert Shrikes touch on this subject as well. Several of the Bible's end-time prophecies can now be more clearly understood when we consider the UFO delusion. For example, the UFO idea will provide one way for sinful humanity to explain away the rapture of the church. Mankind will demand an explanation for the disappearance of 250 to 200 million people when the 1 Thessalonians 4:16 to 18 event occurs. Dr. David Allen Lewis and Robert Shrikes, UFO End Time Delusion, page 25. And by the way, like I've said before, nobody knows exactly how many people will disappear at the rapture, right? Only God knows that, but that's just their estimation. Similarly, in 1997, Guy Malone wrote, ask yourself a question. If at some point in the future, assuming you hadn't read this article or had no training or belief in Christian doctrine, and millions of people instantly disappeared from the face of the earth while driving, flying airplanes, from right in front of your eyes or from your bed, where would you think they all went? As a brand new believer at age 23, I was introduced to the teaching or doctrine of the rapture a few years ago. I asked myself the same question. The whole concept seemed pretty hard to swallow. I was definitely convinced that the Bible was true, that Jesus was and is God incarnate, and that most of the other biblical teachings of the end times I'd heard and read made sense. Still, millions of people disappearing at once and history continuing for possibly years, it was a big pill. If you are reading about it here for the first time and having trouble believing it, trust me, I understand. No, I wouldn't walk away from my belief in Jesus, nor could I dismiss a portion of the Bible just because I had trouble with it. I prayed for revelation, for understanding. Where would the world government say all the people went? Then one day it hit me. Standing outside of a grocery store, While running an errand for my older brother, God answered. They will say the UFO people took them away. It was too obvious. I'm far from the only believer to have figured this one out, but to work, it would have to be the greatest deception ever pulled on the face of the earth. Guy Malone, Come Sail Away, UFO Phenomenon and the Bible. Here we see Exogenesis claimed alien creators of humanity leading people to unite and worship the Antichrist. There are varying views on how this possibility might play out, some more general and some more specific. Dr. Alan Lewis and Robert Schreckey's State of Aliens and UFOs. They figure into the end-time scheme of prophecy and its fulfillment. The increasing frequency of sightings and close encounters are a part of an end-time assault on humanity. The prophecies of the Bible clearly reveal this. Both the seemingly benign and the hostile entities are playing their diverse roles. They will play an increasing role in preparing a segment of humanity for the reception of the Antichrist. Dr. Alan Lewis and Robert Schreckey's UFO End-Time Delusion. In a video debunking New Age occultism, evangelist Chris White offers, let me suggest a possible X factor, that is, an extraterrestrial presence being discovered. Scroll down. I realize that there are many documents that reveal a plan of the New World Order to use an alien threat to cause the patriotism needed for a world government. After all, people will no longer view themselves as separate countries, but instead, I think he meant as separate countries, but instead a world family. This would also create the need for a world bureaucracy to deal with the threat. But I think that based on the propaganda of Hollywood and the occult writings, that this might not be presented as a threat at all, but rather as them posing as a savior to a world that will be war-torn. They will claim to be saving us from ourselves. They will claim to have genetically created mankind. And they will claim that they used to be like us and that we are on the verge of an evolution. And like I showed you in How Satan Sees Bible Prophecy, when I was reading about Superman and the Kryptonians, their planet, what did Wikipedia tell us? Wikipedia told us that Superman's planet, the Kryptonians and Krypton, is an evolved version of Earth. It's Earth in the future, thousands of years in the future. That is why the Kryptonians look like humans. But it's just that they were advanced because of science and technology. Not because they had powers, but because of science and technology, they were able to be advanced. So they merged with science and technology. They became transhumanists, right? And with the science and technology, they got powers. It's crazy. So because it's the same demonic forces influencing these movie makers and comic book writers and these occult religions and occult ideologies, that's why they are all saying the same thing. The same thing. So people that come in contact with UFOs or with so-called aliens like the sergeants we were talking about, if they don't know Christ and if they don't come to Christ, they will be influenced by those demonic forces because they don't realize that what they are in contact with are demons, right? So the demons will have influence over them and they will be vessels for the demons to propagate their new age and occultic philosophies because they want the whole world to be conditioned to believe that evolution is true. And the ultimate peak of evolution will be to merge with technology. And that is why the aliens, when they invade Earth in real life, they will be coming with their own technology. And that's why when these military heads all over the world, like in China and the US and Russia, when they are interacting with these so-called aliens, they are doing so many sacrifices and stuff in exchange for knowledge and technology from these demons. Imagine that. Let's carry on. All over the world, religions will be in turmoil. Here are these aliens and they are claiming to have created us. That means that they are claiming to be our God in a sense. All the religions will be forced to reconsider their ideas. Secondly, it would finally get the idea of a possible evolution to the entire world. Everyone across the world, from the smallest village to the largest city, would have a really good reason to believe that they too could be evolved. They could become like the aliens. They could become actual gods. Like I said before, the same lie. Satan is not creative. He just imitates God. So he can only use the same lie and only repackage and repackage and repackage. So it's the same lie. People are trying to be like gods. What he told Adam and Eve, ye shall be as gods in the garden. He said, if you eat this fruit, your eyes will be open, you'll be wise, you'll be as God. So since that time, he's been deceiving and manipulating man to accept what he has to provide, so-called knowledge, so-called wisdom, in exchange for man becoming a god. So it's just deception, because of course man can never become God. There's only one God, and his name is Jesus Christ. Amen. But that's the same lie, and it's the same lie that has been repackaged and repackaged in New Age, in all these false religions, in Buddhism, where they think that you can meditate and reach your highest potential, your higher consciousness, and this, and eventually reach your godhood. As you become incarnated and reincarnated and like it's deep, it's deep. But let's carry on. These demons are influencing people to prepare the way for what the New World Order calls its phoenix, and what the Theosophical Society calls the world teacher, their Christ, what I would call the Antichrist. Why is it not their Allah? Why is it not their Krishna? It's always Christ, because Jesus is the true God. He's the true God. He's the true God. That is why it's always Christ they are trying to blaspheme. Chris White, David Icke debunked. But see more on this topic in the New Age and relationship with the Antichrist. Additionally, Paradox Brown describes one possible scenario this way. Beyond this, there is also the beast from the sea, with 7 heads and 10 horns, which, while having a symbolic meaning, is also the fallen angel Abaddon, who is released from the abyss. It seems likely that this fallen angel Abaddon will take the form of a human man and not assume a strange alien form like the other angels seem to do in Revelation. However, this does not preclude people believing that he is an alien. In fact, as the whole world is said to worship him as God, it stands to reason that he may claim to be God or creator of mankind, a human-looking alien who claims he himself created humanity in ages past. Seems a lie that the world might believe. In fact, many abductees already believe this. One type of alien seen in abduction false visions is the Nordic. Nordic aliens look like beautiful humans, and some people describe them to seem angelic, and they also claim creation of humanity. Many people already have gotten the idea into their heads that the earth may have been visited by aliens in the past, or that aliens might have built the pyramids etc. Have been visiting us for a long time, or even that aliens seeded life here on earth. This part, aliens seeded life here on earth, is what gives rise to the whole starseed movement, the whole starseed religion that New Agers also believe. Like, it's crazy. This theory is known as panspermia or exogenesis, and some abductees already believe that humanity was genetically engineered by aliens that were here in Earth's past. The foundation of these ideas is the theory of evolution. If people are deceived into thinking Abaddon is an alien who was here in the past, this may be the grand finale of the theory of evolution, which has grown beyond a science theory to be a faith-based religious system. In fact, it seems to be the best candidate out there for the strong delusion spoken of in 2 Thessalonians. As much as believing in evolution is a matter of faith, exogenesis is also a matter of faith. What if someday people were told by reliable sources, and reliable sources in this instance, meaning people like this retired NATO intelligence officer and the sergeant, and also the recently revealed former Israeli defense minister or whatever, who said that aliens have been in contact with US intelligence and Israeli intelligence, and they're saying humanity is just not ready for them to be revealed, blah 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 blah. So you get all these people who are actually credible people with, they've worked in top level government positions, they have several degrees or whatever. So people take them seriously, like when they speak and when they write books. And then you have these very same people who are saying they have met or come in contact with aliens. So people that don't have Christ, it's very easy for them to, when they hear these people, to believe their reports, especially when they too have seen UFOs in the sky, or they too have encountered some kind of demonic force around them. Because if you don't have Christ, they're pretty much easy prey for demons to like appear and manifest and just play around with you. So that won't be hard for them at all, because it's only true believers that know the truth that these are demons. They know the truth, and they know the solution to this, that these demons would disappear at the name of Jesus. Like at the name of Jesus, every knee must bow, they crumble, they disappear. They have no power against true believers in Christ. Such as the government or mainstream media, that aliens were real, here and from another planet in another solar system. What if someday people were told by reliable sources that the aliens had said they guided the evolution of mankind through genetic engineering, or were the ones who originally brought life to the earth from outer space? If this were the case, many people would believe it, especially those who already believe in evolution, because if a person believes that life evolved here on earth, it leads them to think life could have evolved in space as well, and aliens could exist. The theory of evolution has been very effective in prepping the world to be deceived by Abaddon, should he claim to be an alien who was here in Earth's past. Paradox Brown, A Modern Guide to Demons and Fallen Angels. So I find it so very interesting that these aliens claim to be out of space, but the truth of the matter is, because we know they are demons, and these demons, for instance, Abaddon, is coming from the bottomless pit. They are not coming from outer space, they are coming from the bottomless pit in spiritual dimension, right? And then you have four demons, four fallen angels that are bound in the river Euphrates, right? They are bound in the river Euphrates, and they will be released as well during the Great Tribulation. So it's like these demons, they are coming from below. In the spiritual dimension, they are coming from below. They are not even coming from above, they are coming from below, a lot of them. But they are lying to the world that they are coming from above, they are coming from outer space, they are coming from other planets. It's all a lie. But apart from that fact, during the Great Tribulation, because the devil and his demons, they are not omnipresent. The devil cannot be everywhere at the same time like God is. God is omnipotent, he's omnipresent, and he's omniscient. That's why the devil needs technology, because during the Great Tribulation, and because for now, because we're not yet in the Great Tribulation, right? For demons to be able to manifest, they have to be summoned. They have to be summoned. They can't just manifest, because God is restricting them. He's restricting them. He's restricting what they can do. He's restricting their evil. So they have to be summoned, right? But during the Great Tribulation, because God will allow evil to fully reign for that period of 7 years, they don't need to be summoned anymore. They will just manifest fully. So they will fully manifest. So you will have this horde of demons. And because, like I said, they are not omnipresent, they need technology. They need to be able to use technology to be able to track people. They need to track people. So that's why they are coming with technology.
I came here to give you these facts. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this earth of yours will be reduced to a burned out cinder.
robot. Without you, what could he do?
There's no limit to what he could do. He could destroy the Earth.
All vehicles, close in. Let's go.
Your attention, please. Make your way directly across the courtyard to the main barracks. Leave all your cell phones and cameras here.
Helen, thought it was important to have you part of this team. Don't be afraid.
Afraid of what?
I'm going to ask you a series of control questions. Are you currently in a seated position?
Yes,
Do you feel pain?
my body does.
Are you human?
My body is.
General Quinn needs to see you in the briefing room. He says it's urgent.
Are you aware of an impending attack on the planet Earth? I'll repeat the question.
Did you feel that? Feel what? You should let me go. If the Earth dies, you die. If you die, the Earth survives.
They are coming with technology. And you know my video, Time's Up, the prophetic clock is ticking. I showed you guys a clip of one of these 2020 movies, alien movies, where the alien, after the alien manifests, the alien sits down on the dining table with the protagonist and his girlfriend, I believe, and they hold her hand. And when they hold her hand, her wrist gets separated. With their sorcery, they are able to separate her wrist from the rest of her arm. And in the midst of her wrist, you see the chip, the RFID chip. And she's like, what's that? They said, oh, we put that in you to track you so we know where you are. And you know, like I've said before, these movies are all conditioning. Why would aliens need to put chips in people to track them? And yet, in that same clip, you see that alien asking the protagonist, where is Jesus? Tell us more about Jesus. And they touch the protagonist's forehead. And once they touch his forehead, he has a vision of so-called Jesus. But the Jesus he sees in that vision is the Antichrist. Because you look at the hands, and he doesn't have the holes that show that he was nailed to the cross. The Jesus in his vision doesn't have the holes in his hands. So you know that that's the Antichrist, the counterfeit. But in his vision, that Jesus is presented in his vision as the Messiah that the world has been looking for. So after the vision is over, the alien tells him, yes, that's the Jesus we've been looking for, that is the Savior, that is who will save Earth. Wow.
We have conquered science, medicine, technology, and the physical world. We search for something greater beyond our understanding. We search for the origin of the universe. The greatest conceivable existent.
Why us? I mean, why us?
We would like to ask you a question. Who is this?
Идите, научите все народы, крестя их во имя Отца и Сына и Святого Духа, уча их соблюдать все, что я повелел вам. Итак, идите, научите все народы, крестя их во имя Отца и Сына и Святого Духа, уча их соблюдать все, что я повелел вам. Я с вами во все дни до скончания века. Аминь. Я с вами во все дни до скончания века. Аллилуйя.
Why are you looking for him?
In our observations, he is the greatest common factor in humans with strong amounts of this aura.
Why do our arms hurt? Ever since we were taken, our arms have felt strange.
Relax. You were implanted with tracking devices for our records.
You shepherd of Israel.
Wow. So it's like the devil are his agents, through movies, through music videos, through anime, through K-pop, through Korean dramas, through TV shows, through novels, through cartoons, through false religions and New Age philosophy. The devil is deeply conditioning the world for when the rapture happens. So that instead of turning to Christ, people will get angry at God, they will hate God, they will curse God, they will blaspheme God. Only a few people will repent. Only a few people will understand that, no, it was Jesus. They will believe the gospel. But compared to the rest of the world will follow the beast and worship the beast and take his mark. So none of this is a coincidence when you hear and see these things, like about Katy Perry's recent video I posted on my community wall. Her recent music video, The End of the World, as well as what's that guy's name? Declan? I actually don't follow pop artists. I just happened to stumble across this video. But this other guy, Declan, made a video about the rapture, right? So it's like, it's not a coincidence that this year there's been so much UFO disclosure, so many UFO movies, articles, UFO, aliens. It's because the enemy knows the Bible, he knows prophecy, He knows the rapture will happen, but he doesn't know when it will happen, because the Bible says no one knows the day or hour. So he doesn't know when it will happen, but he knows it will happen, you know. And Jesus has given us believers the times and seasons so that we can get spiritually ready and be watchful like the 5 wise virgins, ready for our bridegroom who can come at any time. So when the shout is made and the trumpet sounds, we're ready to meet our bridegroom. Unlike Buddhism, Islam, etc., extraterrestrial belief has a veneer of scientific credibility. Arguably, the world's most famous scientist, physicist Stephen Hawking, has even stated that he believes aliens probably exist, and the world's most famous atheistic evolutionist, Richard Dawkins, as antitheistic as he is, has no problem with aliens theoretically seeding life on Earth, provided that somewhere down the chain of creators there is a life form that arose via evolution. Anti-Christian scientist and co-discoverer of the DNA molecule, Sir Francis Crick, similarly proposed that life came via panspermia, life seeded by aliens, as a possible explanation for the mind-boggling complexity of the coded information on DNA. It is a mistake for Christians to be uninformed or to ignore the alien phenomenon. Belief in aliens is so prevalent that the church will be seen as irrelevant in this area if Christians can't address the reality for the culture on this topic. Its scientific bent has an allure not readily found in other false religions. We regularly dialogue with people who morph Jesus into an advanced extraterrestrial whose advanced technological prowess gave him the ability to perform seeming miracles and even raise the dead. Such ideas are challenging traditional Christian belief. In most churches he visits, one of the authors, Gary Bates, regularly meets individuals who have seen something in the sky that they can't explain, or even had an encounter with a being that claimed to be from another planet. Often they have never spoken to their pastors or others in the church about it for fear of ridicule. As such things escalate due to the ongoing conditioning of the culture, we should heed the warning of Jesus in Matthew 24:24-25. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible. Gary Bates and Lita Kostner, Ufology, the world's fastest growing scientific religion, emphasis added.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Michael Nisim. I'm conducting an interview with my father-in-law, Mr. Alan Franklin. Alan,
hello Michael.
Thank you so much for being willing to have an interview with me.
Oh, it's a great pleasure.
We're sitting in my home in Naharia, and Alan, my father-in-law, came to visit us together with his wife, Pat. And it's been a nice stay, a nice visit, and right now it's rainy outside.
Just like England.
Yes. Well, Alan, I wanted to ask you if you could just say a few words about yourself, particularly what work you've had in the past, decades. Yeah.
a lot of decades. Yeah. Well, my wife and I, we've been journalists all our working lives.
Journalists?
Yes, we were reporters, and then Pat was a sub-editor. I became a chief reporter. Then I was an editor of newspapers, tabloid newspapers, for 21 years.
Okay.
And we then became publishers and so on. So we had a lot of experience.
Okay.
And worked for radio and TV as well. So there's a lot of people we've interviewed. We've seen a lot of things, and it's given us a lot of experiences which we can talk about, hopefully for the benefit of those who might get sucked into some of the things that I was sucked into when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason that I'm interviewing you. These experiences that can deceive people into errors.
Oh yes.
So you've been a reporter, and in one of your jobs as a reporter, you were asked to conduct an interview with someone. Could you tell me about that?
Yes, well, I was working
just a bit slower.
Yeah, I was working as a feature writer on some magazines.
Yeah.
And they sent me down to Winchester in Hampshire, England,
Yeah.
to interview someone called John Campbell Best, who described himself as a healer.
John Campbell Best, who
Yes.
described himself as a healer.
A healer. He was actually.
Was he a Christian?
Well, when I went in there as a fairly naive young man in my 20s.
You were not a Christian.
Oh no.
Okay.
I was more interested in things like psychic affairs and so on.
Okay.
Spiritism.
Yeah.
They called it spiritualism. But when I went down to see Mr. Campbell Best, on the wall he had a big picture of what purported to be Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So I assumed that he was a Christian of some sort. I didn't really look into it very thoroughly.
But as you got to know him, you thought maybe he isn't a Christian.
I saw a lot of things that would make your hair stand on end. I won't say all of it now. But
okay. So he wasn't really a Christian, even though he had this picture of Jesus.
They were basically all psychics, a whole group of people around him, quite a number of people actually. He had lots of money, lots of wealthy supporters. Show business stars went to him and gave him money and staged concerts for him. He was quite successful.
A known figure.
Yes, he was well known, yeah.
So,
ex-professional boxer as well.
So you conducted an interview with him.
Yes.
And you mentioned a few things before to me that caught my attention. One of them that I wanted to know about is, you said that he offered to maybe lay hands on you?
Yes, he did, yes. He laid hands on a lot of people, and he used to manipulate spines and so on.
Manipulate spines?
Oh yeah, as if he were a doctor or a specialist or an osteopath. And I said to him once, were you ever trained? He said, in a previous life.
In a previous
So that could cover all bases really.
So he offered to you to heal or something, yeah?
Yes, I mean I didn't have a father. My father disappeared before I was born, and I was rather a mixed up young man. I was a drummer in a successful rock group and drank a lot and went to psychic things. I was mixed up all the while I was working as a journalist as well.
Lost.
But I mainly thought of committing suicide.
Well.
And I used to go on the top of a multi-story car park and wonder where it would be softest to land so it wouldn't hurt too much when I died.
So you were in a bad state, yeah?
I was a mixed up young man.
And he gave you a little bit of a sense of meaning or
yes,
something?
Yes, he did actually. Yes, he did.
Something
yeah,
for
he was sort of the father I didn't have, a big, commanding, very masculine person, and I related to him. And he said, I can sort you out, and he said, lay down on the couch. He did this with a lot of people, by the way.
Yeah.
And he put his hands on my body.
Okay.
And I did feel a sort of warmth come up through my body.
Okay.
The sort of stomach side, I think it was.
A warmth come up through you.
Yes.
Did you feel anything else?
I did feel a sense of well-being, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I must say that this is just how it was. This was the truth.
Wow.
And then he claimed that I'd been his son in a previous life. And he said, I'm starting a newspaper, would you like to come and work for me? So rather rashly and foolishly I agreed on the spot, because he was a charismatic person. Beware of charismatic leaders in the fullest sense, not just the charismatic Christianity, but people who've got a lot of charm and charisma on the surface. Yeah. When you look beneath, there's an awful lot of things that you find that are not true, and this is an interesting part of the story.
Making up for something. So this is a warning for many young people, but not only, maybe people who have had something missing in their life, maybe their father wasn't so functional, their mother, whatever, and then they find someone who seems to fill in the gap. He's got the answers, he's a charismatic character, and you can find that also in churches where people are charismatic personalities, and they can draw you after them, but they might not be doing you all the good.
And they make a lot of claims which often don't stand up to reality.
Yeah.
And even though I was by no means a Christian, I always valued the truth.
Yeah.
And I know that the truth sets us free. And it does set us free by a load of old nonsense. And gradually, as I worked for him and saw how he behaved, and that truth was just another word to him, I called him out. A lot of psychics are vegetarians, and he was a psychic. They didn't call themselves spiritualists. That was a term they didn't use. They were channelers or healers, you see, because that was a more modern term. So one day And I walked into the office, and he was munching a meat pie. Knowing he was a vegetarian, I was one of the few people who would challenge him and get away with it. I said, "John," I said, "you're eating a meat pie. You're a vegetarian." He looked at me rather irritated and said, "Well, I know that." He said, "I can't be bothered with all that vegetarian rubbish." So he had flexible principles. And another time I caught him, he was a brilliant salesman. Beware of people who are brilliant salesmen.
You can sell an idea to
a lot of people in churches
yeah.
can do this, in fake churches and fake movements. They're charismatic. They get followers, thousands of followers, because people don't check enough. Check what they really believe. This is what I should have done, and now I always do. Check to see what they really believe. I walked in one day and he was selling advertising.
Yeah.
Tells you what sort of man he was. And he was making incredible claims for our newspaper circulation. In fact, we had a fairly small circulation of about 20,000 in a part of Southampton and Eastleigh in the south of England. And according to him, we covered half the country. You see, and he was making all these claims. We go here, we go there. He's naming cities that came to his head. And afterwards, he put the phone down. And I challenged him, and I said, "John," in my naivety, I said, "we don't cover any of those places, do we? That's not true." He looked at me again, rather irritated. He said, "I know that." He said, "We need the money more than they do." And he said, "The end justifies the means."
Yes.
So I started to see you've got very flexible principles, and the truth is a meaningless term to you.
Yeah.
And that was true of all his followers too, because the psychics, a lot of them who were healers, they were desperately sick and dying young, and they gave counselling to people, yet their marriages were falling apart.
Oh,
I thought,
yes.
you are a mixed up crowd of people.
Yeah,
You really...
this happens also in charismatic
of
Christian
course.
circles. Of course, in all Christian circles, you can find the most rotten things. I must say this is very important to get through. But from my experience, I've seen that in charismatic Christian circles, the morals are in
flexible,
a much lower state.
Yeah, I call them charismaniacs. Some of them.
Yeah, well, yes, well, some of it is charismania. I mean, and that's the reason I wanted to ask you about this experience of a warmth you felt in your body, plus a feeling of well-being.
Yes, it did.
Is
It
because
worked.
many people in churches say that they felt that when someone put their hands on them. That's one of the experiences. And they specifically refer to the tummy area. I've seen testimonies of people saying, "Oh, I had this lovely feeling in my tummy, and it didn't leave me for weeks afterwards." And I've talked to a few people who've said that, and here you are telling me about someone who was not a believer, not a Christian at all. He laid his hands on you, and you had a similar feeling to what they did.
I felt quite euphoric, actually, and you certainly go out with a heightened sense of well-being.
Yeah.
You get into all kinds of other trouble because you're following very bad advice.
Yeah.
But in a way, they do have an effect on you. I mean, it's not something I would ever recommend, because all kinds of bad things follow, and bad advice followed and got me into all kinds of trouble. But nevertheless, these people are commanding. They sound like they know what they're talking about, but the reality underneath is rather dirty and different. Something rather odd. He got both of us, Pat and I, into a development circle to develop our psychic senses, you see. And one day we knocked on his door. This was quite a privilege. Very few people got into this. So we were sort of honoured in a way by him. And we went in there, and his wife, who was a psychic, a medium, spiritualist medium, opened the door and she said, "Ah, Alan and Pat," she said, "one day you're going to expose us." And I think that some demon had put that into her head, because she didn't even realise she said it. And afterwards we just went on as if she said nothing. And I thought later, Pat said to me, "I think she's right. I think we will, because we know a lot about how tricky they are and how dishonest they are."
And that was before any of you or Pat, were believers.
Oh, far from it. Yeah. In fact, what he did was put me off all things spiritual for many years, because I thought it was all a load of hogwash. So that it almost put me right off ever looking into the real Christianity.
So I had another thing that I wanted to ask you about, because there are different views of the of the rapture. Will it be before the tribulation, in the middle point, at the 3/4 point, the pre-wrath, or right at the end, post tribulation rapture? And it was very interesting for me that you mentioned that an idea was circulating, and maybe you heard this from that psychic, among New Agers,
and it still is,
that people will be removed from the earth.
Yes.
Could you tell me about that?
Well, at the time, this was in the 60s, mid-60s, late 60s, there was a film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. It was about Michael Rennie starred, came in a spaceship to Earth, you see, and a big thing called Gort came out and started destroying the Earth.
Someone called Gort?
Gort, it was a monstrous robot, you see. Okay. I found it fascinating. I love science fiction. And Campbell Best said, what will
Campbell
happen?
Best is the psychic.
He is the psychic, John Campbell Best, yes. And he said, when this sort of crisis in the world comes, because they knew quite a lot about Bible prophecy, they warped it in a way, but they still had an overall idea of it, more so than many Christians, because they realized that we were near the time of the return of what they called the Christ consciousness. We know it's the Lord Jesus Christ. They would never accept that. They said to me that through the ages, the Christ consciousness had manifested on earth under different names like Buddha and Muhammad and so forth, and Jesus Christ, and then they said the Christ consciousness will be reborn soon, and but before then
that's like leading up to the Antichrist.
Leading up to the Antichrist. They never use the word Antichrist, but these people said they were the masters of Maitreya, and they were the 12 hidden elders who would meet over Tibet to order the New World Order, and that would be ushered in. But first, people who were standing in the way, and they didn't actually say this, but they mean the fundamentalist believers, the real Christians, would be removed using the saucer people to take them out and re-educate them.
The saucer people, that means flying saucers?
Flying saucers are making an increasing impact in the world.
Yeah.
They're not real, they're spiritual, but they do exist in a spiritual realm, because I've met people and interviewed people, real scientists, who track them at very high speed doing sharp right angle turns. And I was in something called the Surrey Investigation Group on Aerial Phenomena, spent many times investigating all kinds of saucer incidents, and Gary Bates of Creation Ministries International has written a book about it, which is very good indeed, telling that in a couple of hundred cases where Christians were starting to get involved with this, and people that looked like beings from another world were coming up to interfere with them, men in black and so on. They said, in the name of the Lord Jesus, get out of here, and they vanished instantly. So they're not physical, but they are real.
So
that's what he said was
aliens are for some, these so-called aliens are for some reason afraid of the name of Jesus.
Yes, I wonder why that is.
So you're saying
it gives you a clue where they come from, doesn't
it? These aliens are demonic beings.
They are certainly demonic.
And what do you think of the flying saucers? Are they real, or are they? What do you make of
they
that?
have been tracked on radar. They are real to the extent that there is something there, but they're not physical things.
Okay.
And I've interviewed lots of people through the years and done quite a few stories. Now, obviously, some of the people are complete fantasy artists.
Yeah.
Others are ordinary people who have had odd experiences. And I was quite good, because I've interviewed thousands of people in my life, and teams of reporters who interview thousands of people over many years. You can actually very easily tell where someone is telling lies and where someone is actually recounting something they believe to be true.
Yeah.
And so I could actually sift out the truth from the fiction by my experience.
I see.
And it's useful now, because there's never more deception in the world than there is today, particularly among the young.
I myself had an experience with a flying saucer. We were sitting here at the table, and there was a saucer on the table, and one of the kids, they kind of moved their elbow suddenly, and the saucer just came flying off the table.
But did it levitate? Didn't it?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wanted to say thank you very much, Alan. Thank you for being willing to have the interview with me.
I'm very happy,
and I hope to publish this interview on some media.
Okay, so feel free.
God bless you.
It's all true, and thank you, Michael. Thank you for the work you're doing here.
Okay.
So I just found that very interesting. But one last thing I'll just mention to you guys is this, I guess there's a TV series for it, I believe, but this is the comic, The Eternals, a comic about the Eternals, right? See, the Eternals are a fictional race of humanoids. You see, even though the aliens, right, they have different species, they're emphasizing the humanoids because it's like the world will relate to the humanoid race of aliens more easily because they are like the less scary looking ones, right? So that's why they are conditioning you, the humanoids, but they are all demons, all of them, whether they look humanoid or animal-like or like hybrids, all of them are demons. But it's just more conditioning. Appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics, they are described as an offshoot of the evolutionary process that created sentient life on Earth. So you see that in the comics and in the movies, they are letting you know that these humanoid demons are going to claim to be the ones that created evolution or created life through evolution. So they will claim to be gods. They will claim to be the gods and the creators that created human beings through the process of evolution. The original instigators of this process, the alien celestials, intended the Eternals to be the defenders of Earth. So the Antichrist is going to be the leading defender of Earth, which is why at the Battle of Armageddon, it is the Antichrist that will be leading his army against Christ and his army of saints, which I explained in my video called The Rapture According to New Age Channelers, and I believe you guys should watch that because that also exposes more of their belief system and more of what they believe will be an evacuation. Like when the rapture happens, they've been told in their religion there to be an evacuation, a cleansing of Mother Earth, this and that, to increase their vibration, whatever. And the people that were removed, the people that were taken, were people that were hateful, they weren't peaceful, they hadn't increased their vibration to the right frequency and all this crap. Which are the true believers that will disappear. So they've already been conditioned to believe that they shouldn't panic when the rapture happens. Rather, they should think of it as a good thing, as a chance for rebirth, for a chance for them to reach an even higher consciousness, which is what Katy Perry was also propagating in her music video, in her lyrics, when she was saying, oh, when the world is not ending, don't worry about it. That is a chance for a new life, is a chance for a new world, is a chance for new this or that. It's the same demonic forces behind this whole thing. Like, it's a very deep agenda that has been going on for years, hundreds of years. And it's only the truth that shall set you free. The truth of whom is Christ. Once you have Jesus Christ, His Holy Spirit will always expose the works of darkness, will expose the enemy's lies and deceptions and manipulations, because a lot of this New Age philosophy has even crept into churches. They are mixing New Age philosophy and saying, Jesus said He's the Christ, you are the Christ too. Jesus said, I am, you are too. I am, everybody is I am. There's God in you, there's God in me. Like, man, oh man, we are really living in the last days. So, hope you guys are blessed. Love you all. Can't wait to see you all in the clouds and fellowship with you all. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Now, let's talk about a film that's coming out in November of next year about a group of immortals created by Disney legend Jack Kirby in a film we call The Eternals. Now, we have assembled a giant cast for you in this. This story spans thousands of years. We pull back the cosmic curtain on the MCU in ways you can't imagine. You want to meet the Eternals? All right, ladies and gentlemen, as Icarus, Richard Madden. Playing the Eternal Kingo, Kumail Nanjiani. As the fastest Eternal there is, Makari, Lauren Ridloff. We've got as Phastos, the amazing Brian Tyree Henry. Let me introduce you to the leader of the Eternals, Ajax, played by Salma Hayek. And playing an Eternal that is eternally stuck in a 12-year-old body even though she's 7,000 years old, Leah McHugh as Sprite. As the powerful Gilgamesh, Don Lee. And as the warrior Athena, Angelina Jolie. Now, I want to introduce you, there's a new Eternal named Druig, played by the great Barry Keoghan. And believe it or not, that's not all. As our final Eternal, Cersei, we have Gemma Chan, who is... And I can also confirm, playing a non-Eternal character in this film named Dane Whitman, is Mr. Kit Harington. This one is big. Our director, Chloe Zhao, is in London getting ready to work, but I really wanted you to meet, ladies and gentlemen, our Eternals.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Marvel Eternals video. Marvel dropped a bunch of new information about the movie, a bunch of new details and previews, so we'll break it down. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs for X-Men and how they're world building in big cosmic ways in the MCU going into Marvel Phase 5. So just going down the list, starting with number 5, everybody wondering how they're going to use the Marvel Eternals movie to set up the X-Men characters in Marvel Phase 5, because it is going to be a while before we see the really big X-Men characters show up. And the way that they do show up will be very different from what we saw during the Fox Marvel X-Men movies. The Eternals characters were created by the Celestials. They're immortal, functionally, so they live forever. Where have they been this whole time? There are a lot of questions that Marvel has to answer in this movie. But in the way that Marvel sort of weaves in characters like a tapestry, connecting everything, the Marvel Eternals will be connected to all the other pre-existing Marvel movies in sort of a retroactive Easter egg seeming kind of way. Like it's all been connected this whole time. They've been around this whole time. They've been influencing things this whole time. We just haven't known about it till now. One of the things that connects all this, though, is the Infinity Stones, which we just got done dealing with during the Infinity Saga. During the Infinity Saga, we learned the origin of the Infinity Stones from the Collector, which is also happening on Nowhere, the head of one of the dead Celestials in present day. Obviously, the Celestials are going to be some of the biggest characters, literally and metaphorically, during the Marvel Eternals movie, just to explain their backstory, and they're also kind of going to be the next big villains of the MCU. The cool thing that they're doing with the Infinity Stones, at least on a story level during Marvel's Eternals movie, is showing you how everything is connected through the Infinity Stones and the Celestials. The bigger cosmic characters like Eternity, the purpose of the universe. You hear Ego the Living Planet talk about being born and not really understanding who he was. Well, we'll learn a little bit more about how he's connected, how Nowhere and the other Celestials that we've seen before are connected to what's happening during the Eternals movie. So number 4, quick history lesson. When the universe was born in the Big Bang, essentially the Infinity Stones were the remnants of the previous version of the universe. That's why they're so powerful. They contain the power of an entire universe distilled down into 6 small stones. So what happens is when the new version of the universe, the MCU as we know it, is born, Eternity is also born with it. It creates the Celestials to go out and garden the universe, just experiment, try to create life. When it doesn't work out, clear the weeds and try again. That's how characters like Ego the Living Planet were created, but they don't have a direct link with Eternity. They don't speak to it all the time. That's why Ego the Living Planet says, I didn't really know what I was when I was created. He was just kind of left to his own devices just to experiment and figure things out. So even though they're not meant to be good or evil characters, you do have rogue Celestials. That's kind of what Ego was when he tried to turn the entire universe into himself. But what happens millennia ago is that the Celestials come to planet Earth, they see that life has sprouted, and they try to experiment on it, creating the Eternals, granting them cosmic powers, effectively turning them into a bunch of superhumans. As you saw during the Collector's PowerPoint presentation that he gave the Guardians of the Galaxy on the history of the universe, you saw that the Celestials, like this is Eson the Searcher on a different planet, using the Infinity Stones in their task. So the Celestials used Infinity Stone cosmic energy to give the Eternals their powers. That's why some of the powers in these previews look similar to some of the powers of the characters in present day who got their powers from Infinity Stones. Really good example is Richard Madden's Icarus character who can wield cosmic energy. Look at the light bloom on his hand. It looks just like the light bloom on Captain Marvel when she's using her powers. She got her powers from the Space Stone, just another one of the Infinity Stones. Another really good example is Salma Hayek's Ajak character. She's the leader of the Eternals. She has magical powers, kind of like the Ancient One or Doctor Strange. And back in December, Kevin Feige showed off an Eternals trailer at Brazil Comic-Con. They haven't released it online, but during that footage, she was wielding magical glyphs that looked just like Doctor Strange magical glyphs when he was fighting Thanos. Costume designs also seem very similar to the modern Avengers MCU characters' costume designs. Those are all things that Marvel is doing to show you how influential the Eternals characters have been to everything that's happened in human history, yet somehow we haven't seen them till now. So obviously that's a big part of the story too. Where have they been this whole time? Why did they participate in the big battle during Avengers Endgame? And what's going on with Kit Harington's Black Knight character that Kevin Feige has said is so big that he's going to star in one of the next Avengers movies? So in present day, Kit Harington is playing Dane Whitman. He's not the Black Knight yet. He's just a regular archaeologist that's part of this long lineage of the Black Knight. The way they talk about it, he's going to have a Black Knight arc through the course of the film and will slowly become the comic book Black Knight by the end. But he's not going to start out like that. He'll just be a normal archaeologist learning about the tomb, quote-unquote, of the space gods, which is actually taken directly from a Jack Kirby Eternals comic book. The Tomb of the Space Gods within Marvel lore is really just a place that the Eternals can go to contact the Celestials, to summon the Celestial host. That's where you get into the larger machinations in the villains of the film, the real villains, even though technically they're saying that the Deviants are the villains of the Eternals movie. Technically they're not. Really, it's actually the Celestials. So him learning about the Celestials is sort of this event on the level of the Earth learning that aliens exist, like during the first Avengers movie. So the Eternals don't want him messing with the Celestials or revealing their secrets to the world. You've all seen the set pictures of Gemma Chan's Cersei character with his character. They have a sort of romance during the film. She's the one that actually tries to stop him from revealing everything, but then they wind up falling in love. They had a big romance in the comics, so I'm assuming that they're just going to do a version of their comic book romance. They haven't fully explained how he becomes the Black Knight during the movie, but it probably has something to do with him embracing his family's legacy and the actual ebony blade itself. The way they explained his Black Knight armor during the movie is that a lot of it's going to be CG, because when they were actually filming it, they didn't have a completed script and they hadn't completely finished building his armor. So they're kind of doing it the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man armor way, where Robert Downey Jr. rarely walks around in actual physical armor on set. Usually they just do all of his armor in post-production. My assumption is that they're just going to tie the armor to the actual blade. Like he'll hold the blade and activate the armor that way, and it'll look a little bit like when Black Panther activates his nano vibranium armor or Iron Man's nano armor. The blade itself is actually really badass. The ebony blade can teleport, just like Thor uses the Bifrost in Stormbreaker, except he doesn't need to be holding the blade itself to teleport. He's connected to the blade on a magical level, so he can teleport to the blade's location, even if the blade is on the other side of the Earth or if it's on another planet. It's nearly indestructible, it can cut through adamantium and vibranium, and it can deflect magical attacks. This will all be useful stuff for when he's fighting the Eternals characters who have grand cosmic power. They're crazy powerful. Then because he can use it to counter all the Avengers' powers, they can have a little bit of fun with that when they get to Avengers 5. Probably the greatest power that the blade has, though, is that Merlin enchanted it so that any time that the Black Knight is in contact with it, he's virtually immortal. He cannot be killed in battle, which comes in very handy. The way they balance all those powers out, though, is the blade itself is cursed. Like they talk about the curse of his family. The more he wields the blade in battle, the more people he kills with it, the more it becomes tainted by evil, and the more he succumbs to bloodlust. And eventually he would turn into a monster if he just kept killing people with it. The way that the Eternals movie is setting up Marvel's new X-Men characters or X-Men movies, the mutants, however you want to think about them, is all through the Celestials, their cosmic power, and how they've changed the Earth and the Eternals and humanity. When the Celestials created the Eternals on Earth, they also left trace elements of their DNA, their cosmic power in the soil that slowly tainted the Earth, so eventually it modified human DNA, creating the X gene. The reason why we haven't seen a lot of mutants till present day is just because the X genes have not been activated. That's where you get into the concept of all the cosmic energy that's released through Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet snaps, the Hulk's snap, and then Iron Man's snap. You have 3 Infinity Gauntlet snaps in a relatively short time span, all on planet Earth. The way they talk about it during Avengers Endgame is that just a single Infinity Gauntlet snap releases cosmic energy on a scale never before seen in the universe. Now imagine that happens 3 times in the span of a couple years. That's more than enough to activate everyone's X genes all over the planet, which is why you're not seeing X-Men pop up till years after Avengers Endgame. The reason why the Celestials are the secret villains of the movie, though, technically secret villains if you want to call them that, is because of the Celestial host, because they will wipe out humanity if they deem them to be a failure. Press F in the chat for Earth again. And the reason why the Eternals weren't in this big battle during Avengers Endgame is because when this is all happening between the snaps, they still think that they're normal people. Their memories have been altered by one of the other Eternals, Sprite, who has the ability to control people's minds. And just like the cosmic power of the snaps activate a lot of X genes around the planet, those also trigger the Eternals' memory and they start to remember that they are, in fact, immortal and cosmic beings. But hopefully that explains a little bit about what's going on with the Eternals movie.